The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week.
Okay. All right. A couple weeks ago, Valve invited a bunch of journalists up to its headquarters. And this is after Gabe Newell did an AMA in which he confirmed that they were working on some full-length games and answered all sorts of questions about Steam and Valve's investment in VR. And this is kind of an extension of that. So some of those people who participated in the AMA were invited up there along with our friends over at Polygon and PC Gamer. And some interesting stuff came out of that. We didn't exactly talk a lot about it last week. Most notably, Valve has confirmed they are working on 3 full-length VR games, not based on the Team Fortress or Portal IPs.
Okay, so just Half-Life. That's
now,
cool.
Now, it wasn't clear if what he said was that these games weren't just ports of, or that they may be in the same universe. I think I'd be shocked if they weren't in that same universe at all. But it seems like it's way more than what they did with the lab, which was the collection of mini games and experiences, experiments over time. That's great to hear.
I couldn't be happier. I mean, that's akin to Nintendo making a game for their console. You know, it's
right
for their own console.
I'm surprised it's that many.
Yeah,
like 3 is a lot.
Well, we also don't know whether when he says full-length games, if that means these are big AAA development teams sizes working on them, or if, like in a very traditional Valve setting, like small projects run by small teams, but still with the depth and complexity of a full-length game. Like it could be very well a puzzle game, right? A full-length game you could call Super Hypercube a full-length game, and but I think Valve wants to push the boundaries of VR. Now, the other things there's a really great recaps on a bunch of other websites of with transcripts of what he said. But he talked a lot about how the future of VR is really uncertain, and that everyone can see the potential, but we really don't know where it's going to lead. And he used a couple analogies. He talked about how, for example, with the Nintendo Wii, when he first used the Wiimote and played Wii Tennis, he saw the huge potential in that motion control and thought they would go a ton. That was just the beginning of motion controls, and ended that Nintendo just got it right that first time, and that Wii Sports was kind of like the end all of like the best thing you could do with that system. Same with things that he admits he was wrong with the DS. That if he really didn't see the benefit of having 2 screens in a mobile console like that. That he'd rather it made more sense for like a PSP style console, and DS clearly won.
As far as the Wii goes, though, I think that was more of playing to the limitations of the technology at the time. Like I don't think it was accurate enough. People tried to do more, but it just couldn't.
Right.
It needed that kind of I don't know, relaxed restrictions on what you were tracking in order to like Wii Sports worked, but not much else did.
And motion controls after the Wii came out really tried to go mass market and race to the bottom real fast. Hardware companies didn't try to release motion controllers that were more accurate. They tried to release more motion controllers, and more games just took care that simulated what Wii Sports did. And that was it seemed like that was a big fear of him as well. That the race to the bottom, the race to mainstream and lowering costs, is the thing that would inhibit the growth and development of VR. And that in his mind, VR it's going to be a high-end technology and a high-end product for a very long time. Much like PC gaming stayed a niche product and a niche technology that saw benefits in that benefited other uses for PCs, for the office and workspace, but buying expensive video cards, it wasn't a mass market thing. And it's not until now that everyone does have PCs that we've reached a really nice plateau with performance, that you have games like esports and League of Legends really reaching the mainstream, and in games like Minecraft. So it's clearly different than the Oculus approach, where Oculus, yes, they're putting a lot of money into making these AAA games, and a lot of software, but they're really trying to be in Best Buys and trying to get into the homes and trying to make VR succeed now, when Valve maybe sees a more slow burn, a slow pace of development to really flesh out the hardware. Because he says, and I think we all agree, we're like the headsets, the consumer headsets we have now, that consumer only meaning that we can buy them in stores, are primitive. And there a lot of it's burdened by the piggybacking onto cell phone technology, cell phone screens and cell phone sensors, and that's the stuff that made these consumer headsets and this generation of VR possible. But really, for VR to hit its stride, the hardware development has to split itself off from the cell phone development.
Do you think that's a hint that at least some of these 3 games will sync up with the next generation of VR headsets?
I think he's got to be that kind of forward-looking. I think when he says he's confident and he knows the other VR, he means Oculus, is confident that they have hardware plans in the works for high-density screens that would make the relatively high density screens of current headsets obsolete. That's exciting to me. And that makes
the first comment I still get from everyone who puts on the headset is it's blurry.
And by that it means not that it's out of focus, but that it's low resolution.
Yeah.
Right. And even though it's higher resolution than a 1080p monitor,
right? It's
not 4K, but 4K is the next step. 8K, 6K. But even when I frame it in that 4K and 8K language, that's still tying it to TVs and monitors and cell phones. I mean, we were all caught off guard when Oculus and Vive showed that you didn't have to put a 5-inch Note screen that was taken off of a Galaxy Note and put it on a VR headset. You can take 2 screens and turn them portrait mode, and that's what they use currently, that vertical resolution. And you can, like we said earlier, you can cut these screens in any density, any panel, as long as you put money into it. And that's what I think we're going to see with not only the displays and the optics and the sensors, but also on the maybe the hardware running it. I can totally see in NVIDIA or AMD's pipeline, it would not be far-fetched to see VR dedicated graphics cards that work better for VR than they would for desktop computing.
That's interesting.
Just like there are graphics cards that NVIDIA makes that are for workstations and for rendering that aren't necessarily great for PC gaming, I could see a VR tier of graphics cards.
Yeah. Well, I mean, NVIDIA, at least I think it was NVIDIA, they tried to push that SLI solution where each card was working for a different eye.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of that's still bootstrapping existing PC hardware to work for VR. Because, yeah, it is PC gamers and people who have $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 PCs who are spending $800 on VR headsets now. But as we see more software come out, and as I think we're all eagerly awaiting the next generation of VR hardware, it'll be interesting to see where Oculus and Valve may diverge. Like the Oculus inside-out tracking headset does seem a little bit more on the mass market, lower fidelity side of things.
Yeah, for sure.
While on the Valve side, I could totally see them embracing more of it, and whether tethered or untethered, a more expensive, high-end product, which I'm totally fine with. And I think there is enough of. Valve definitely has enough money to support development of that and making content for that. But I think there's enough of an audience currently with the enthusiast community that they're just like there were for PC gaming back in the late 80s and early 90s and the mid 90s to support VR as a niche high-end platform.
Yeah. Would
you be disappointed if VR ended for the next 5 years being niche and high-end?
Well, I mean, they go hand in hand, don't they? I mean, I would probably still be a part of it. It's just unfortunate because it's like there's always going to be a chicken and egg thing. We're going to get these small games that look like demos, until we have enough of a market to make it worthwhile for the developers. So, I mean, the 80s were a long time when computers were expensive.
Yep.
And we were playing low-budget games.
And we were happy to pay a lot of money and happy to...
It didn't really become a thing that was a huge market until the 90s.
Yeah.
I feel like, we might be in for the long haul here in terms of being niche. And I'll be a part of it. But
it's a question of whether the leaders are going to have the patience.
And maybe social is the spreadsheet of VR in that back in the 80s, you justified spending $2,000 on a PC because you had word processing and spreadsheets, and then you could also get your Creative Lab sound card and graphics card and play games. And maybe social communications is the justification to adopt VR, which can scale. You can have low end social, low fidelity social, and high end social with the same, with parity for interactions. But then people who want to spend more money can play the high end niche VR experiences.
I'm just tempering myself for Valve time, because who knows how long these games could take when it's done.
You like wake up 3 days later, like, oh, the headset's still on. That's how long those Valve games.
Oh, sure. Any new things? Now, Jeremy, we tried we played some VR games this week when you got back from vacation, right?
Yeah, we jumped in my favorite new game, Racket NX.
Racket NX. Sure, have you played this?
Yeah, that game's fun. I don't have an environment that's well suited for it. My office isn't big enough.
Yeah, it really needs a 360.
Yeah.
But I'm playing with the standard parallel Rift setup, and I'm doing all right. Like, I spin one way, and then I spin counterclockwise and spin clockwise.
And it's also a game that, as we were playing it, so to describe it, it's like a racquetball, 360 racquetball in VR. You can play multiplayer, and you're trying to hit these targets and win points and deduct points from your opponent. You really love the physics.
I do. I mean,
of the
really,
racket.
It feels like it's like ping pong physics in a racquetball setting. You can really put English on these balls, and it just feels right. It's not easy to do, and they did a great job with it. But I'd never played multiplayer until I played with you, and that was interesting because if you hit the ball, it hits a wall wherever you send it, and then it goes to your opponent, and you can't even hit the ball. Like, the ball changes color.
Yeah, the interactions, it's really possession based.
Yeah.
So I get a possession, you get a possession, and I'm just watching. We're just sharing the environment as we try to hit these same targets. You don't need to move around a lot in it, like physically walk around, but 360 and untethered really help.
Oh, yeah.
This game.
In fact, maybe that's why I just tried to pre-order that Vive.
The TP Cast?
The TP Cast, yeah. But of course you can't yet.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, when you've done 360, you're doing just two sensors, or did you add the third sensor?
No, I didn't. And I'm not even doing corner to corner. I'm doing parallel, and it works well for me.
You still get occlusion. I get occlusion.
If I did when we were playing, I didn't notice it.
I have to actively compensate for that occlusion. And I actually know, not just from being tethered, but I know when I'm facing away from the computer screen and the sensors, because I know if I move the controller in front of my chest, I'll lose the tracking, and I can see the artifact, like the lag in the controller, and then I'll know, okay, got to spin back around again. Yeah. And that's it's on Steam VR, but of course you can launch it via your Oculus. Something you can also launch now in the Oculus Store, Tilt Brush.
Yeah, how about that?
Did you see the large-scale Tilt Brush environment? It was like 4 or 8 mile long.
What are you talking about? Oh, you can download?
Yeah, that you can download.
Huh.
And it's incredibly long. People are building giant rooms out of it, and more than just they're building spaces that they can be within, not just objects in front of them, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I love that it's on Rift now. I wonder what that port was like to accommodate the different controls. If that posed any challenges for them, or if that was somehow easy because there's a few more things you can do with them, with the gestures and such.
Jeremy, you posted this story. Google just posted a new face scanning technology.
Did you? Yeah, it's a great video. We should put that in the show notes. BuzzFeed apparently has a video channel, and they went and visited Google, and they played around in Tilt Brush, and Google demonstrated this face scanning technology where they would scan their faces before they went into VR, and then they would put the headset on. The headset, for some reason, needed a QR code on it. But then the third-party camera that was shooting the guy with the headset, in the virtual space against like a green screen, it mapped their face onto where the headset was. So it was a continuous face, as if they had a transparent headset on. So you saw the person's whole head, and right there across the goggles, you saw their eyes and their nose and everything else. And I think that there was some kind of eye tracking inside the headset as well, so that their eyes would move and they could make them blink. And that was all artificial, but it was mapped using real scanning technology. It was pretty neat. I'm not sure where you would use this.
So without the eye tracking, it would just be like a model of your face, and you'd have dead eyes.
Exactly.
But instead of seeing a headset, you'd see someone's face. And it allows for fast avatar creation.
Yeah, maybe I suppose that's it, but it really does lend itself to this mixed reality shooting too, because it gives you eyes, and there's that old adage, the eyes are the windows to the soul, and they mentioned that, and that's true. Like, you enjoy watching people more when you can see their eyes.
It looks good. That's the other thing.
Well, I mean, it looks interesting. Yeah, I mean,
it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool.
It's very like 80s sci-fi,
Right.
like Total Recall,
Yeah.
Lawnmower Man.
Well, you have so much real around that, like the real head is there, the real body's there,
right, because it's the mixed reality footage.
Yeah, it's just the eyes, and so maybe that there's so much real that actually it works.
It's a hack to get around the fact that your eyes are blocked off by the headset.
What they didn't show was this mapped into VR. Like, that would be interesting to go into big room.
Because this is just the video.
Yeah.
This is just in the video output from the mixed
Right.
reality video capture.
But if I could mix my eyes and my real face onto an
In a big
avatar
screen.
in VR and look at you guys in VR, that's what I want. Like,
Well,
I
then
didn't.
you're just talking about basic avatar creation then.
Sure, but incorporating
With eye tracking.
and my actual face scan. You know, it'd be like it'd be one step closer to being with a real person.
Well, then when we went to the USC last year, I mean, avatar creation was a huge part of what they talked about, and you know, they believe with their research is you can do face scans, I mean, photogrammetry face scans really cheaply now, and really quickly. The turnarounds quickly, and you can map those models to the face scans. Because anyone who knows modeling, you do a photogrammetry face scan, you get the texture, you get the geometry, but you don't get any of the rigging. For the skeletal systems.
Right.
And so the automatic rigging is the magic when you can get that kind of scan and the block of digital clay and put it on a skeletal body, maybe a preform, like a preset, and then have it so it's matched up to your eyes, your nose, your mouth, and your hands. But the eye part is the tough part. And that's why you need companies like Fove who are researching eye tracking to make that happen. Like, there's no third-party eye tracking consumer eye tracking technology. I agree. I would love for that to be an extra layer of data that we send along into the API for developers to tap into. But outside of the social use for it, like Facebook, if you look at their demos, like what Mark Zuckerberg showed at Connect with Michael Booth and the avatars. Yeah, it's all fake face tracking. Like what John Carmack was saying is like, oh, you can fake it by having the eyes, you know, with intentionality being anticipated, or using head track data to map out.
Better than nothing.
It is better than nothing. Yeah, and that's what big screen does.
Yeah.
But you want the idea to be able to look at someone with your head, but peer somewhere else. Like, that's a whole different type of communication.
Yeah. No, I think real eye tracking is going to change the immersion level with multiplayer tremendously. I do. I mean, having done that podcast with you guys, that's what I missed.
Yeah. I mean, there's a big difference between doing like a Skype podcast with just audio to doing a VR podcast, actually being in person. And we're closing that gap is, I think, we all agree, the big potential of VR. Something that VR may not be able to overcome, or at least we're still waiting to see the first instance, is the locomotion problem. Yeah. So Fallout 4, Bethesda's Fallout, is getting adapted to VR. They announced this last E3. And along with Doom, I guess. Doom is also getting ported to VR in some capacity.
That's right.
And while no one has played the full Fallout 4 in VR yet, Todd Howard of Bethesda said that the game is trying every single locomotion option possible. So everything we can imagine, from scaling.
Does
to
that mean they're going
teleporting.
to allow the user to choose different
That's
options?
what I don't think that's clear, but he says what they've had so far is very compelling. I think the locomotion solution has to match the game, or the game has to be designed for the solution.
Yeah, teleportation so easily breaks Fallout.
Right. And Fallout was designed not for that, was designed for holding down for time passing.
Right.
So you have to design either the game for the solution, or if you have one particular solution that works, you have to limit that solution to work for the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all want an Oblivion. We all want a Fallout, a full open world environment to explore in VR.
We just don't want to throw up.
I just don't know if that's reasonable. Like, without I can't smart people are thinking about it. But
this is a frustrating limitation of VR.
It is
big time because like my whole life I've wanted VR and I didn't anticipate that it would make me motion sick.
or that you wouldn't be able to walk around.
Right.
And you don't think that what was that thing that Will was on one of the GDCs, that device?
The Omni. No.
That was terrible.
That treadmill. No, it wasn't real treadmill. No. Yeah. Like faking the motions, even all the solutions that people have come up with tracking their hips and just using hip movement as a way to get around.
Yeah, I've tried that.
It isn't the real thing.
You don't think wireless will make a difference here when we're at room scale? Because we talked so much about how you can make with about 15 by 15 room space.
Who can afford that? Like, who's going to have that much space?
Well, I believe that when you're in VR, small motions can feel like big motions. We know that, right? Like small movements, as long as the relative motions are all synced up, you can project bigger motions. It's why redirected walking works. And I think a version of that kind of redirected walking for motion. So I think it's going to end up being that kind of tracked hip, making small steps.
You do.
Meaning that transfer to big steps.
I hope we find a way to do it. My feeling so far is like the biggest success has been lone echo, where you can propel yourself at a constant rate in one direction in a zero-G environment.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make me motion sick. And when I finished that demo, when was that? GDC?
No, it was a Oculus Connect.
Right. When I finished that demo there, I felt like that might be the template for what would become the FPS for VR. Like it'll just be zero-G environments everywhere.
You just have to design the game for that limitation.
And then like all these FPSs that could be considered Wolfenstein clones,
mm-hmm.
they'll all just be lone echo clones forever.
Right. Or it's all spaceships. It's all cockpit games.
That's what I mean. Like it's just zero-G, constant rate.
Cockpit.
Yeah. So that's it. That was an interesting solution. That is the best so far for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait to play that game. Speaking of events and GDC is next week, and so Oculus was not at CES, and I anticipate hopefully we'll see a lot of new content from both Steam VR developers and Oculus developers, and maybe some new hardware from third-party makers, accessories. I'd love to see some stuff at GDC. So we'll be there next week to check that out as well. New releases?
Rhombus of Ruin came out yesterday.
Wow.
Well, 2 days ago for the listeners.
Yeah, for PSVR.
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet, but I will be trying that before next week's show. I'm a big fan of Psychonauts. Love that game. Backed the new one on Kickstarter. So apparently the new one, this VR episode takes place right after the end of Psychonauts, and you're on a spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gotten okay reviews, 80s. So I'm excited about it.
Is it a full game?
Well, is any VR game a full game? I don't know. It's a $20 game.
I mean, that's I think that's gonna be a big question this year. I mean, I would argue The Climb is a full game.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Good point.
That's absolutely a
There's
full
a
game.
handful.
Yeah. I think that's the trend. I hope this year is that we'll start to see full games, like what people think of as full 10, 20-hour experiences. Come out for VR.
Honestly, though, I don't know if I need that necessarily.
Yeah.
I really don't. Like, I keep going back to the shorter ones. I love Space Pirate Trainer. I just hop in there, play around, and I'm done. It's like a game of pinball.
Yep.
I don't know. We don't have anything to compare to. We have so few of the long games.
Yeah.
That's hard to say.
I want all the above. I want to see all the above.
But there's
Absolutely.
the comfort factor. Like, I can't play more than an hour of Elite Dangerous.
I just haven't had that experience yet of VR and storytelling combined in that longer game that I know is possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, Arizona Sunshine, I guess, is inching towards that, but I like the multiplayer aspect of that.
Yeah,
more than
social will make games feel like longer, full games.
Yeah,
will be the quote unquote easy add-on, even though it's not easy. A little bit of AR news. According to Thoreau.com, Microsoft, his sources say that Microsoft is not going to do. They had originally planned to do a HoloLens version 2 this year after the $3,000 developer kit, but Microsoft is scrapping plans. According to his sources, for a HoloLens 2 and putting all its efforts into a HoloLens version 3 and not worry about the marketing push and trying to make a consumer product for the current technology. I think it's a good idea. I think AR, we're even further out away, and given some of the news and reports of Magic Leap prototypes and the state of that technology, I think playing the long game is smart. And Microsoft definitely, we know that HoloLens is great for the room tracking. Inside out room tracking works, and so they know where they need to improve in terms of the ergonomics, in terms of the software. Having more time for them to figure out the hardware and more time for their partners to make some software for it only will help AR. It could be good for them.
I have yet to try HoloLens.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I want to.
We should go down and try it.
Up? Is it down?
Well, we can go either
We
direction.
can go either direction.
We can go either direction.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll find a reality where we'll mix in the augmentations.